Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Indie Gear. In this episode, we're going to be covering the whip. We're going to basically keep the same format that we did before, where we go from the cheapest all the way to the most expensive, and I'll be giving you a look at my whip collection and why I own the whips that I own. If for those of you that are following the series, in the last video, I said that the hat was the most important thing and that we were going to go down the list. So why am I opting to do the whip before the jacket? Because the jacket's a pretty big deal. Well, if you are a diehard indie nerd like I am, you're going to want to learn how to use a whip. And so you're going to want to get a whip pretty much right away, because it takes quite a while to get good with one. I mean, there are a couple of cracks that you can learn pretty quickly, but if you want to become proficient with one, you're looking at least 6 months, probably a year. For those of you that pay attention to the channel, I do have a whip tutorial series on here that you can follow if you want to get into that sort of thing. For the whips, in this video, we're going to go all the way at the bottom where we just go with the costume whips. Because I know there's a lot of people out there that aren't really interested in learning how to use the whip. They just want a nice prop piece or something that looks nice. So, let's get started. For the bottom of the barrel, the very, very lamest whip you can get, hop on eBay. There are tons of whips on there. They're not going to function very well, but they're also very, very cheap. My first whip, I think I got when I was about 17, and I paid like 35 bucks for it at a Western wear shop. It was basically just a piece of rope with some leather braided around it. I mean, it was bad. But, you know, I was able to perform a couple of very basic cracks with it, and after I discovered that that was something that I wanted to pursue, then I went out and bought some spendy ones. So that might not be a bad route to go. Again, really, really cheap. Are they going to hold up very well? No, they're not. But they will also look nice on your belt. So, yeah, there's that. If you're looking for the bottom of the barrel functioning whip, you're going to want to go for $90 to $100, somewhere in there. The main whips I would suggest would be Magnolia Clothiers. I'm not a big fan of them just because I think they charge too much for their stuff, but they do make a really nice indie whip that's somewhere around $100, and it functions fairly well. The next one I would recommend would be Todd's Costumes. It's going to be hit and miss with them. They're often out of stock on their whips, but if you can get your foot in the door at the right time and buy one from them, their whips are also really good, and they look really sharp. So again, those are about $100, so a good buy for that. The other option I would recommend would be Western Stage Props. I'm not a big fan of their leather whips, but they do make some really nice nylon ones, and they're great beginner whips, and they look the part. And again, you're going to be spending about $100. I happen to have one here that I'll be showing to you in a little bit. Another thing to note about Indiana Jones whips, most of the ones used in the film were either 8 feet, 10 feet, or somewhere in between. And they were 12 plat whips. I mean, you can get cheap 4 plat whips all day long, but they're not going to look as good. You want to try and get a 12 plat whip if you can. The 16 plats aren't bad. I believe the Crystal Skull one may be a 16 plat whip just because the braids seem to be a little bit tighter on it, but it's also going to be a heavier whip. And that leads me to the next issue. Do you want to go with cowhide versus kangaroo hide? Most people, especially ones that are looking for the high-end whips, are going to want the kangaroo hide because that's what was used in the movies. David Morgan swears by it. For those of you that don't know who David Morgan is, he's the guy that made all the whips for the original 3 films. He has passed away now, but his company is still up and running, and you can buy a whip from him. We'll be discussing his company a little bit here. But if you're serious about actually learning how to use a whip, go with an 8-footer. Take it from me, a 10-footer for a newbie is a handful. I still don't like using 10-footers. I can do it, but I just don't like them that much. An 8-footer is really where it's at for me. If you're a shorter person and you're a beginner, you might want to, you could probably get away with going with a 7, but I wouldn't get anything shorter than that. And for the people that are screen accurate junkies out there, 8 to 10 feet. You can't go wrong there. 8 to 10 feet and 12 plate. That's what you want. So, moving along, we're going to get up into the intermediate price range here. A whip that I would highly recommend is a Nylon Whip by JBH Works. That's a company on Etsy. They make a superb nylon whip. If you want to see one in action, I do have a JBH Works whip review of my Captain America nylon whip also on this channel, so you can see it in action. But it's really, really nice. It does everything that the leather ones do. It's just not quite as heavy. But it's also a fraction of the price. You could contact Jeremy on JBH Works, and he'll make any kind of whip that you want. So if you want one that looks like an Indiana Jones whip, just tell me you want a wrist loop on the end, you want it to be 8 to 10 feet, and you want it to be brown. And it'll look great and function great, and it'll be a tiny fraction of the price of these other ones that I'm about to mention. Now, if I was going to buy a whip today, the company that I would probably buy from is Trinity Whip Company. They make really good whips. You can get them in cowhide or kangaroo, and they're very, very competitively priced. One thing before I start talking about money here is if you want a high-end functional whip, it's going to cost you. The JBH Works whip goes for about $200. The Western Stage Props, Magnolia Clothiers, and Todd's Costumes, they all go for about $100. So you're looking at, unless you get one of the eBay ones, you're looking at $100 right off the bat, and then it's just going to go up from there. Trinity Whip Company, an 8-foot whip from Trinity Whip Company is going to cost you $550. And then it's going to go up from there as well. Midwest Whips, another great whip company that makes fantastic whips. They're going to start at $619 for an 8-footer, and $737 for a 10-footer, and then of course somewhere in between if you want a 9-footer or whatever. The wait time on these is also going to be a little extreme. Trinity Whip Company and Midwest Whips, the wait time for those is several months, 3 to 5 months generally. Western Stage Props, the wait was about 2 weeks. And then Todd's Costumes and Magnolia Clothiers already have them, so they'll ship them to you right away. That was another good thing about JBH Works. I ordered a custom whip from him and got it in about 2.5 weeks. So there's like no wait time, a great whip. I can't say enough good things about that company. Moving right along, there's a fella on Facebook that does have his own website, Bernardo Del Carpio. You can look him up on his website at delcarpiowhips.com. He makes superb whips. His are going to be a little bit more, $730 for an 8-footer, and the wait time is also going to be a little bit more because it's just one guy running the place and it's a custom-made whip and all that. So yeah, those are fantastic whips. I had a friend that owned one. I only got to crack it a couple times, but it was really, really nice. For the middle of the road whips, those are the 4 companies that I would go with. One of those 4. You can still buy a whip from David Morgan off his website, but you're paying a lot for the name. The quality is really good. I have seen one in person and cracked it, but an 8-footer is $890. For me, that's just, I don't know, a little steep. With how good the whips are from Trinity Whip Company, I just don't see any reason to buy a David Morgan whip other than saying, I own a David Morgan whip. But they are really, really good. Are they the best out there? I don't know. I've got a Joe Strain over here that I think is superb. And the one I use in my whip tutorial videos is by Crease and Corral. Unfortunately, he's not even taking orders right now because he's like a year behind. But I think those whips are just as good as a David Morgan. And at the time, I paid $550 a piece for those. I mean, that was a while ago. I think I've had these whips for about 8 years now. But, yeah. That just seems a little extreme to me. $1,000 for a whip. I mean, the 10-footer from David Morgan is $1,045 plus shipping. I don't know. I'll leave it up to you. I mean, this is an informational video for people that want to get involved in indie gear. So I'm just giving you options to get the best things that you can. But that's all I've got on the list here. So I'm just going to go ahead and pick up the camera here and show you the whips that I have and why I got them. I own 4 whips. Honestly, you can get away with 2. One leather one for the summertime and a nylon one for nasty weather. I live in Oregon where it rains a lot, so I use this whip quite a bit, and I only shoot my whip tutorial videos when the weather's nice because I want my viewers to get the best experience possible. But anyway, this is my whip from JBH Works. As I mentioned earlier, I have a full video on the review of this whip. And you can see, look at that braiding. I mean, that is fantastic. Really, really like this whip. And like I said, it was $200. Delivery time, 2.5 weeks. You can see it's a little dirty because it's seen some action. We will discuss that here in just a minute when we get down to my leather ones. This one over here is a Western stage props whip. This belongs to the wife. That's why it's hot pink. You can get it in a multitude of colors, or you can even have a color mixture like this one has. But of course she wanted a pink one. This is a 6-footer, and I think it was about $80 or something like that. I also have a whip review of the Western stage props whips. They can't hold a candle to this whip as far as performance goes with a nylon whip. However, they're also only half the price. So if you're looking for one that just looks nice on your belt or something, just get one of these and get it in brown and you're good to go. One thing to note is on their website, their whips have, I believe, an 11-inch handle on them. That's going to be way too long for an Indiana Jones whip. So what you're going to want to do is ask for an 8-inch handle, which is what this is, and then it will look the part. So just something to keep in mind. And moving right along, this is my Crease and Corral whip. It's an 8-footer, styled after Raiders of the Lost Ark. Let's just take a quick peek at the Joe Strain over here. This one has hardly been used at all. This one gets used all the time. Once upon a time, this one was the same color as this one. So you can see that after you use it for a while, it gets that nice worn look where towards the end the leather gets darker and darker as opposed to the handle. So if you take the whip out in the yard and use it, it's going to look even more like the ones from the films. So just something to keep in mind. Like I said, I got this one about 8 years ago for about $5.50. And it is my favorite whip. Even though this one over here is a Joe Strain made out of kangaroo, and this one's just made out of cowhide, there's just something about this whip. It just feels good in my hand. It's light. It just, I don't know, it just comes alive so easily. I just really, really like it. So again, you know, we're looking at kangaroo versus cowhide. I don't know if that actually has anything to do with it. Maybe it's the maker. I don't know. But this whip speaks to me, and I love it. So I could really care less whether it's made out of cowhide or kangaroo. I just like the way it feels. I really can't explain it. Joe Strain has retired from the whip business, so you cannot buy this whip anymore. I do believe his website is still up, but no whips. He retired a while ago. I bought this one just a few years before he retired, and I gotta say, it is really nice. It's got a nice loud crack. The functionality of it is great. It is a little bit heavier than this one, which might be why I like this one better. I'm not sure. Also, if you take a peek at the knots here at the handles, this one is quite a bit thicker, and I have small hands, so maybe that's also got something to do with it, that I'm just able to handle this one better because the knot at the end is smaller. So that might have something to do with it as well. But I have no plans at all to get rid of this whip. I like to have 2 leather ones in case, you know, the fall wears out or something like that. I've always got one ready to go. But that's just me. You know, I just like having backups. But this is the one that's present in my fan film that I'm making right now, and it's the one that's used in my whip tutorials. I mean, this is the whip for me, and I hope it never wears out, and if it does, perhaps Dusty Damerel, the guy who runs Crease and Corral, will repair it. I know he tends to repair his own stuff, even if he's not taking any current orders. So that might be a route for me to go as well. And then when I ship it to him, because he lives in Texas and I live in Oregon, I could ship it to him, he fixes it, sends it back, and I'll have this one to use in the meantime. So that's why I like to have a couple of extra whips on hand. Now, I know I've got some friends that have like 10 or 12 whips, and they're all different lengths and all that. I don't know. Say what you will, but I guess I'm kind of a one-trick pony. I like my 8-footers, and I like them in the style of Raiders because it's a lighter whip, and you can be quicker with it. There are lots of people out there that use 2 whips at once, stock whips, bull whips, you know, whatever. But do what you like. I've just got my preference for the 8-footer, and I only like using one at a time because that's what Indiana Jones does. And when I'm in my indie gear and I've got my whip on me, I can put on quite a show. I've got quite a few whip demonstration videos on this channel as well, if you want to take a peek at those. But anyway, that's about all the information I've got for an Indiana Jones whip. I hope this was helpful. Next video, we're going to be covering the jacket. So thanks for watching, folks, and I will see you next time.